Hey everyone, it's Mr. Terry here with a brand new month learning about Jesus. And here we have the Hope Kids with us. Say hi, guys.
Hi!
So we're learning about Jesus and the people he helped and the people he chose to hang out with. So this month we're calling it the Learning World Rules, Riding with Respect. And what is respect?
Respect showing others that they are important by what you say and do.
Learning basic respect. I should treat others the way I should be treated.
Okay, you know what time it is?
That's right, it's worship time. Everybody off your seats and onto your feet.
You love me like a friend and help me through. So I will worship you in all I do. So I live my life to show that I know you're everything to me. You're everything to me. You're everything to me. So I live my life to show that I know you're everything to me. You taught us a brand new way to follow you in what we do and say. Jesus, you are for us. Help us be more like you every day. Jesus, I thank you. I just want to sing. You're all that I need. You say that I mean so much to you. You love me like a friend and help me through. So I will worship you in all I do. So I live my life to show that I know you're everything to me. You're everything to me. You're everything to me. So I live my life to show that I know you're everything to me.
You guys are just amazing. I love the way that you worship God. So this month we're going to start off in the book of Luke, right? Jesus had recently returned from 40 days in the desert and was ready to start his ministry. He chose 12 disciples who would learn from him and eventually carry on the mission that he gave them. Jesus could have chose anyone to help him, but instead of choosing the most religious or most elite people at that time, Jesus chose men who were more likely had been overlooked by these religious people. So these men might have felt like they missed their chance to learn from the rabbi. But little did they know, Jesus would give them a chance to change the whole world. Okay, let's recap what we've been learning for the last 6 months. We are in the third book of the New Testament, Luke.
In the very beginning, out of a deep love, God made an amazing world.
But when people turned away from God, the world was broken. God made a plan to draw people back into relationship. So, at the right time, God sent a tiny baby to be born in the small town of Bethlehem, God's very own son.
When Jesus grew up, he was baptized in the Jordan River. God spoke from heaven, "This is my son, and I love him. I am very pleased with him."
After 40 days in the wilderness, Jesus began to go from town to town, teaching and healing, and even though he's God's son, he didn't start out at the capital city of Jerusalem. He didn't go to the fine homes of the religious leaders. Instead, Jesus met with ordinary, everyday people on the hillsides by the lakeshore. And he chose some of the most unlikely people to be his closest friends and followers. 4 of these men were uneducated fishermen. Peter, Andrew, James, and John. One morning, after a long night of fishing, Peter and his friends had caught exactly 0. Zilch.
What a drag, cleaning all of these nets without a single fish to show for it. I may fall asleep right here.
This morning, the fishermen weren't alone on the beach. Jesus was standing on the lakeshore, and though it was early, a huge crowd had gathered around him. They were so eager to get so close to Jesus that they jostled around and shoved backing Jesus right up against the water. But instead of pushing back, Jesus simply stepped over into Peter's boat and said,
"Go out a little way from shore."
Now, if you're Peter, you're probably feeling a whole bunch of things. On the one hand, after fishing all night, you really want to go home and get to bed. But on the other hand, this unusual teacher has singled you out of a whole crowd to help him. I mean, you're used to people just ignoring you or wrinkling their nose at you from the fishy smell that you carry around on your clothes. With all things racing through his head, Peter did just what Jesus asked and guided the boat a little way out from the shore. When Jesus was done speaking, he turned to Peter and said,
"Go out into deep water and let down the net so you can catch some fish."
Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything.
Even though Peter couldn't help protesting a little bit, he already respected Jesus' authority.
But because you say so, I will let down the nets.
Peter guided the boat into deep water, so he and Andrew let down their nets, expecting more disappointment. Instead, whole schools of fish seemed to appear out of nowhere.
Oh, Andrew, pull harder. Oh, the nets are gonna burst.
And first, Peter called out to his fishing partners back on shore.
James, John, bring the boat.
It took everyone to reel in the nets. Both boats overflowed with jumping fish. Back on shore, Peter was so overwhelmed he didn't give a single thought to that massive haul of fish. Instead, he threw himself down at Jesus' feet.
Go away from me, Lord. I am a sinful man.
Jesus smiled at the group of ragtag fishermen.
"Don't be afraid, from now you will fish for people."
The crowd must have been shocked to see Jesus choose these common fishermen as close friends and disciples. Right away, Peter, Andrew, James, and John hauled their boats up to the shore. They didn't even stop to clean all the fish and sell those fish. Jesus wasn't finished calling the disciples. One day he stopped at a booth where a man named Matthew is, collecting taxes. Okay, now, first thing you gotta understand, nobody talked to the tax collectors unless they had to. These men were hired to collect taxes from their own people for the Roman government. They would charge extra to cover their own expenses. I mean, everybody hated them for that. But Jesus walked right up to Matthew.
"Come follow me."
Everyone was shocked, including Matthew. But Matthew didn't hesitate. Something inside him just recognized that Jesus was special. He got up immediately to follow Jesus and even invited Jesus to come over for a dinner party at his house. At Matthew's home, Jesus shared a meal with tax collectors and others who were seen as outcasts.
The religious leaders were shocked.
They grumbled to Jesus' disciples.
Why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners?
Jesus heard what they were saying.
"Healthy people don't need a doctor. Sick people do. I have not come here to get those who think they are right with God to follow me. I have come to get sinners, to turn away from their sins."
Jesus wasn't worried about collecting the right followers or popular friends. Instead, he included everybody. Jesus chose to spend his time with people who saw how much they needed him, instead of those like the religious leaders who thought they were too important to need help at all.
Wonder who Jesus would talk to if he came to my school.
You know, that's a great question.
It's like Jesus is teaching one beyond anything anyone has ever heard before. So what's our part in the story?
Well, I'm glad you guys asked that. Every single person ever made in God's image, I mean everybody you meet is important and worthy of love. Just like Jesus, we can choose to include the people who get overlooked and left out.
Maybe people who aren't popular. Or people who are new or different.
Even people who have messed up.
Yeah, like there's the girl at my school who eats by herself at a table in the corner every day. I could invite her to have lunch with me.
Yeah, and there's this kid in my grade who always gets picked last for stuff. I could have him be my partner in science class.
Oh, here's the bottom line. Include people who are left out.
Okay, so here's a memory verse for this month.
Do to others as you want them to do to you. Luke 6:31.
Man, I love that verse. I use it all the time. Well, you know, that's it for this week, so let me pray for you guys. God, thank you for rescuing us and giving us Jesus. Because Jesus, we can do all things and be included with all things. Thank you for loving us and calling us to follow you. Help us to have the courage like Peter and Matthew did to say yes to you. And as we go about our lives every day, show us how we can include others and show your love to those who may feel left out. We love you, and we say all these things in your son's precious name. Okay, kids, remind your parents that we're going to have a parents' night out. You'll see the slide up there, and just go to hopepd.org and follow the instructions. Well, it's been great having your kids here. It's been great seeing you. So we'll see you next week.
Bye.